the way I think about identity theft is somebody calls you up and says, "This is the Social Security Administration." Or you get these emails saying, "This is the Social Security. You're going to go to jail for 10 years if you don't send this amount of money, and press one," or stuff like that. Or someone calls up. Is that the main ways of, and I know you talked about phishing too, are these the main ways of them getting people that a lot of elderly people have fallen for these tricks too, which is really sad. But
Yeah, so
those, go ahead.
no, that's fine. There's a couple different levels when it comes to identity theft, right? So it's kind of an overall, kind of overarching term.
Sure.
And the way people get your information can happen in multitude of different ways, right? So at my office, we have a board, and it's the size of a wall. It's huge, and it's all the data breach notifications that says your information has been stolen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've had my information stolen in data breaches probably well over 100 times. In every conceivable thing you could ever think of. So once these groups have access to your information, they have access to a ton of my information, right? So it makes it easier for them to try to steal your identity if you're not doing things proactively on your side.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the first way they're going to get your identity is it's going to be stolen from a data breach. Someone has a ton of your what they call PII, protected information, protect health information. They can have.
And Greg, this is what we hear from, like, sorry to interrupt, but just to tell the viewers, this is what we hear when you hear like Apple got hacked, or Visa, or whatever it may be. Okay.
Yep, exactly. Apple, Visa, and there's hundreds of them, right? So they have some kind of personally identifiable information, PII, on you, and they're going to utilize that to then try to steal your identity. And they can do it in multiple different ways, depending on the amount of information they have on you. If they have, again, your address, your social security number, your date of birth, all that kind of stuff, they can just try to go open accounts as you, right? Like they did to my wife. They tried to go, they went to and try to open an account to get a loan as her. Again, if you're not watching for that stuff, it makes it difficult to find. The second way they can do it is utilize that to try to get deeper into your stuff, right? So I'm sure some of your listeners has had these type of emails where you get an email that says, hey, I have installed malware on your system. I know your password is this. And if you don't, go here and give me Bitcoin or whatever, I'm going to, release a bunch of pictures, or I have pictures of your webcam, whatever the case may be. What's really happening there is they're utilizing information from a data breach where one of your passwords that you've used was inside that data breach. So they know it's going to be personal to you. They know you go, oh yeah, I've used that password in the past. Because people have horrible practices when it comes to passwords, right? They have one password. It's the same for every site they use. They maybe add an exclamation point at the end, or a date or something, but they're basically using some variation of the same password on every damn site they visit, including their banking site and their Fidelity sites and everything they ever use. People are lazy, just the way it is. I get it. Passwords are a pain in the ass. But if passwords are something that people should take seriously. I mean, I have over probably 1,200 different passwords. They're all. If you ask me what they were, I can't tell you. I don't know. I keep them in an offline password manager. They're all very long. They're all arbitrary. They're just garbage. I don't know what they are. I couldn't tell you what they are. Put a gun to my head, beat me with a wrench, doesn't matter. I can't tell you my password. And I use a different one for every site. So that way, if people would just do that, I know it takes a little bit of practice, but if people would do that simple thing of using a different password for every site, if something were to happen, so my personal Gmail got hacked. I don't know how. I use long passwords, and it could be bad. I have a lot of stuff in there, but someone tried to log in with my password, but I had two-factor authentication on. They didn't get in. All I did is went and changed my password, and it was done. I had it literally was 5 minutes inconvenience out of my life, versus, oh crap, someone got into where all my tax returns sit and all that kind of stuff. Now what do I do? So you have to take that kind of stuff a little bit seriously. These guys will stop at nothing to try to scam people out of money. They'll utilize children, right? So if you don't go in and if you have young children and try to protect their credit profiles, there's nothing to say that they won't utilize your children to steal their credit profiles. People that die, this is a huge issue that people don't talk about, is that especially family members, when you pass away, it takes the credit bureau almost 3 years to know that you've passed away. So imagine what they could do in 3 years' time with someone who's deceased, who's not going to get any notifications.
So if
To
somebody in
utilize,
your family passes away, Greg, you should notify everybody right away then. So
you
that's
should notify everybody. You should probably have again, part of your estate planning. This is kind of a newer thing that's happening, is this digital, we'll call it digital inheritance, but what happens to your digital persona and all your digital pass away, so that someone can access those, a trusted individual in your family can access those to make sure that you're not being scammed. So we have that in our estate planning, and for emergency purposes and that sort of stuff as well, because it's important, right? Again, if you pass away and your family members then inherit your estate, and now you have all this scam activity going on, you could be left with nothing. You could owe money. It gets to be pretty intense. So you have to, again, it's going to be this kind of change in people's thinking that, again, just like people are afraid of COVID, they want to take precautions on themselves. You have to take precautions on yourself on the cyber side too. You really need to take some responsibility of what accounts you have, how you access those, and that kind of stuff to protect yourself. Make yourself a harder target.
I know some people, if their mother or their father passed away, they say, oh well, the death certificate solidifies that. But meanwhile, you're saying that that's not even the case.
Again, you may have a death certificate, but online, if the agencies that control your credit and all that other stuff online don't know that you're dead, then again, that information takes a long time to get out. Doesn't mean that again, online is a little bit different than that little piece of paper that says that happened. So
Right.
again, you just have to take precautions with it. And again, people just have to get in that security mindset. One of the things that we talk to our customers about forever is about making themselves a little harder target. You don't. There's an old joke that would go around that said two guys went bear hunting, right? And the guy says, well, what if a bear chases? How are we going to outrun the bear? The guy says, well, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you. Right. And
Right, right.
so, right. So, and even though, I mean, that's morbid and funny at the same time, that mentality still on the cyber side needs to happen. There are literally hundreds of millions of targets out there. If you make yourself a hard target, you don't have to be an impenetrable target. You just have to be a hard target. You have to make it just difficult enough that the attacker goes, it's not worth my time. I'm going to move on to somebody else. Because that's what they do. That's just real life, is that if you make yourself just hard enough of a target where it takes more time for them to be able to either get your identity or get into your organization, they're just going to move on, because there's just too many fish in the sea.
And this is Greg Scasny. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Cigent. Greg, let's talk about this as we end the interview. I do want to get into, a lot of people use McAfee, Norton Antivirus. Now we're hearing a lot, and I know this is a little bit different, but LifeLock, as far as we was just talking about identity theft. And a lot of these organizations, well, let's talk about the viruses first. Norton Antivirus, McAfee, are those just pretty much useless? Are they not even worthwhile?
I will say that they're mostly all equally worthless. Now, I don't mean that. So here's what I will say. I will tell you that you need to run some kind of antivirus protection, right?
Okay.
You do in whatever you have. You should run some sort of antivirus. It's going to protect you from, again, when I talk about making yourself a hard target, that's going to protect you from the everyday run-of-the-mill malware type stuff. Is it going to protect you against a more advanced attacker? No. But you have to ask yourself, are you going to be a target of a more advanced attacker, right? So most people probably are not going to be the target of what we call an advanced persistent threat, or a more what we call advanced tradecraft type attackers. They're going to get this run-of-the-mill malware. So find an antivirus you like. I mean, offline, I'm happy to answer questions. I won't talk publicly about most of them, but there are some good ones, there are some bad ones, but they're all based on the premise of looking at something that has happened before and trying to stop it.
Okay.
There are other programs out there that do what they call whitelisting, a little bit better approach to that problem. So those products tend to work a little bit better, but there's always ways around, right? So just because you may have the best antivirus in the world doesn't mean you won't get hacked. Again, I could send you phishing emails to trick you to get your credentials. I could exploit a vulnerability in your system that you don't know about. It's really this cat and mouse game of both prevention and the guys who are trying to get in. You'll never, if people who say that or think that they'll never ever get hacked, they're going to get hacked. I guarantee you. The people out there, the products that say, "Oh, we'll protect you 100%." Those guys are full of shit. There's nothing that's 100%. There's absolutely nothing that's 100%. Again, you just have to, cybersecurity, even on an individual level, is best done in what we call layers. The more layers, kind of like an onion, you have of cyber protection, the better off you are. They call that defense in depth. So if you have your antivirus, you have a good firewall, you're monitoring your credit, you have a good password manager using two-factor authentication. These are all layers on that cybersecurity onion that you can utilize to protect yourself, to make yourself that harder target that I talked about. When you look at some of the more identity theft things, now moving away from virus onto things like LifeLock, realize it's just insurance. They're providing you with basically an insurance policy that if you have your identity stolen, they'll help get you restored. There's some better organizations, I think, locally here in Southwest Florida do a little bit better job than LifeLock. One of them is called Griffin Force. A lady named Carrie Kursky, who's a personal friend of mine. She's awesome, but she's she is the premier expert in our area on identity theft. And so she's a great resource. She has a website you can subscribe to. It's very inexpensive. But that kind of stuff, identity theft's a little bit different than the cyber side of things where I play.
Mhm.
But it's still the same. It's still protecting your information and understanding how to do that. So,
How do you feel like the security industry has changed throughout, working in the many years that you've worked in a little synopsis?
so the security industry is tough. And what I say about that is cybersecurity has been the #1 most venture capital invested sector for the past 6 or 7 years.
Hmm.
I go to all the security shows, Black Hat, RSA. I was just at RSA this year before COVID. There's a plethora of vendors. I've been doing security for a long time. I'm a technical guy, so I'm an engineer by trade. I mean, I have a double E degree. I've done development. I understand cyber technologies very, very well. Even I'm confused walking around a place like that. And that's part of the problem that businesses, there's tons of great solutions out there. We have great solutions. The issue comes down to is that there is a huge lack of cybersecurity professionals. When I talk about cybersecurity professionals, again, I'm talking about whisker guys who have been doing it, guys and gals, because there are a lot of women in cybersecurity too, that have been doing it for a long time, who understand the threats, who understand risk management, who understand how threat actors utilize technology and how they utilize infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. There's zero, even with COVID, there's 0% unemployment in cybersecurity. I get offered jobs every week. But organizations, especially when you talk about the people who are most vulnerable, guys like Chase, Fortune 100 companies, they have the budgets. I feel not so sorry for those people, right? They have the budgets. They can spend the money on cybersecurity. They can protect themselves. But it's the small, medium-sized businesses. People have 5,000 or less employees. They struggle. One, there's no way they could afford to have a cybersecurity staff. Cybersecurity guys are expensive if you can find them. Again, if you're a sub 1,000 employee company, you just can't hire those guys. It's just impossible. You don't know what to buy because there's just a plethora of solutions out there. You don't know who to trust. You don't know who to believe. And so that's kind of led to this just explosion of cybersecurity companies. Now no one knows how to implement. Second thing is, let's say you buy some good cybersecurity solutions. Now what do you do with the data? Who understands the data that's coming from this stuff? So that's kind of the problem, is that people don't know where to spend their money. The solutions are expensive. They don't know if they're going to see how they're going to manage that kind of stuff. They don't know who they have to hire. So they kind of get in this analysis paralysis where they just don't know what to spend their money on. So I'll talk about quickly what we do. A shameless little plug. So we've taken the approach of offering managed solutions to our customers. So we have kind of a plethora of different things. We do security from a device level. So we have some very unique technology that goes actually on hard drives themselves, the actual storage devices and computers. We have a Windows piece of software that basically allows you to protect your data and not allow anybody to access it unless you have that second factor authentication I talked to. So you can protect your data that says, hey, you have to have a fingerprint or facial recognition technology in order to access these files that are very, very important to me. All the way up to what we do on the network layer. So for customers, we will install devices on the network that monitor all their traffic, all the network traffic that goes in and out. and look for threats, look for malware, look for misconfigurations, look for all the things that an attacker would look for. We do some what's called deceptive things. We try to trick attackers into doing things so we can catch them. And that's 100% monitored by our security operations center. So for these companies that can't afford cybersecurity staff, we provide them this defense in depth in a single platform that's 100% managed and monitored by our staff. So you don't have to hire anybody. So it's a very quick way to get a lot of good telemetry to protect your business without having to hire any staff.
Greg Scagny. Greg, thanks so much for coming on the program. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Cigent, and you guys are based in Fort Myers, correct?
Yes, we have our headquarters in Fort Myers, and then we have staff in Silicon Valley and in New Hampshire as well.
All right. Thanks so much, Greg, for coming on the program. Really
No
appreciate
problem,
your
Rob.
time.